All right, let's say you have a priceless video idea and it really does have a big potential to go viral, and you put in all the work necessary. You get the right shots, you put a lot of work in the edit, and then somehow it still flops. I'm talking about a video that really had the potential to get big, but for some reason you ruined it before it even had a chance. The order that YouTubers present information really makes all of the difference, because the best YouTubers really are doing the same things. So I found 3 common elements, and pretty much all these videos that have gone viral seem to have one, if not all 3 of these elements. We have named them making zigzags. I named the second one the Tolkien technique, and the third one I couldn't think of a name for, so we're just gonna get some examples for that one. Okay, we're starting with a video from Ryan Trahan, and I know I said we're gonna get to smaller YouTubers. We will later, but I think he has a really interesting channel because he is getting so big. He is one of the biggest YouTubers, but instead of looking highly produced like Mr. Beast, he still keeps this really genuine vibe. And he's doing a lot of very strategic things, but he's still able to keep this look that makes it so relatable and actually pretty easy to recreate to some extent for the average YouTuber, unlike Mr. Beast. Okay, let's get into this example. So here is a thumbnail from one of his recent very successful videos. And we're not really talking about the thumbnail, but I am showing you the thumbnail so that you have context about what the video is about, and because thumbnails are often very closely related to intros. We are talking about the intro in this case. So what do you always hear about intros? Keep them short, get to the point, and deliver on the title and thumbnail promises right away. Does he do that in this video? He doesn't. He really doesn't. So what does Ryan do? Well, he spends the majority of the first 30 seconds of the video on a completely unrelated side story. Yeah, what he's doing here is actually pretty strategic and genius. So he is using something I decided to call the Tolkien technique, but he is simultaneously setting himself up to be able to use 2 other tricks down the road in this same video. And I'm gonna also show you how to use those for your own channel. But let's start with the Tolkien technique. Shout out to one of the best storytellers of all time, J.R.R. Tolkien. If you don't know who that is, that's kind of heartbreaking, but he wrote the Lord of the Rings trilogy. When I think of this story, the first thing that comes to mind is some dope hobbits that take a ring to a volcano to destroy it. But that doesn't actually start until the end of the first book, because there's so much backstory. So I implore you to use that backstory, and I can already hear what a lot of you are gonna say. You're gonna say, yeah, well, I actually hate it when YouTubers spend a lot of time on the backstory. I just want them to get to the point. I hate long intros. Just give me the information. And I would argue that even if you are a very practical YouTube consumer, probably what you actually hate is when they do it poorly. Because here's the thing, getting more context, more reasons to care about what you're about to consume, and more invested in the concepts is going to help you understand it better, remember it longer, and enjoy it more while you're consuming it. And so when it's done well, it doesn't feel like an intro that you're just sitting through waiting for them to get to the main point. It feels like an integral part of the video, and you don't even realize what they just did, that you're still kind of watching the intro. But here's the thing, they also give you hints along the way that they're going to deliver on the original promise of the video. Otherwise, you're gonna get impatient and feel like they're not giving you what you came there for, and that's really frustrating and makes people click away. And that's key to make it all work, but there is so much more to this technique than just intro. So I wanna show you this other creator. She's a lot smaller, but she's still doing this really well. And in her video, she only goes back about 3 weeks, but it still feels like a big chunk of the story. But I actually want to focus on another technique that she is using, and actually Ryan is too, because these things just work. This is the technique we're calling zigzagging. So let's go back to Lord of the Rings for a second. In the linear version of the story, and I say linear for a reason, you have a bunch of hobbits going on a journey from point A to point B.
Potatoes, boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
And there's a bunch of other cool people in the mix too. But there are all types of detours in this seemingly linear journey. They're getting chased by all kinds of magical creatures, war breaks out, hope is lost, there are deep friendships formed, people are dying. It's amazing.
You shall not pass!
And so it looks like this from this is actually all of these zigzags. Now, Lord of the Rings probably doesn't feel very relatable when you're writing your own outlines, so let's go back to some other YouTubers that are using this on some pretty simple topics. I think a really good practical example of this is from a creator named Natasha Teresa, and that is also her channel name. And recently she had a video that went viral for her typical channel baseline of views, like really about 50 times better than her videos typically do. So her video, put simply, is just about how she put her desk on the ground, but she finds all of these really clever ways to make detours, because if she was just making a video saying, I put my desk on the ground and I'm really enjoying it. It wouldn't be a very long or engaging video, but she's getting a decent amount of watch time, I think, because she knows how to take these detours really tactfully. She's doing this all throughout the video. And in fact, there are only a few spots where she talks about the desk for more than a couple minutes at a time. And then she switches to another subject and she does this here, 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 and probably some other spots that I missed. You can watch for yourself and see what you think. The trick though, is that every single time she does it, there is a reason. It is somewhat related to the desk thing. It's not just off the wall distractions. There's context. It ties into the larger story of the video and her putting her desk on the ground. So they are side stories, but they are relevant side stories. She talks about another house project. She talks about how she made a video about that other house project. And then she talks about her other YouTube channel and the comments she's getting on that YouTube channel. And her son comes in for some stretching and then she goes back to the house project. And it is all over the place when you really break it down, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels really coherent. And a lot of times relevant videos aren't just for fun. They are actually crucial aspects of what makes videos go viral. Let's look at sports, for example. Who would pay money to see a bunch of dudes take a football from one end of the field to another? But people do pay money because it's not actually that linear. The secret is filling in the gaps. So although in American football, the goal is pretty linear, the story is in the back and forth, all the zigs and the zags, and that is what the best YouTubers and storytellers do. Funny thing is, I don't actually like football. You guys don't either.
Oh, yeah.
All right, am I convincing you? Maybe? Nod yes, hit like. We're gonna keep going if I haven't. So maybe you think, okay, yeah, I'm convinced, but when I sit down to do an outline, I still can't think of how to actually add these zigs and zags and make the story feel intriguing and coherent. I know that you might be feeling that way because I recently felt this way, and I have a lot of times. But because of this, because of knowing how crucial it is and also difficult it is to remember and implement, I've got some systems down so that you can also do this. I got you. So there's the first two we already went over, and then the third that I'm gonna tell you in a second. We already went over the first trick, which is start way earlier than you think, but you have to give them a reason to care. There are a lot of reasons to do this, just make sure you do it, because that's going to really help you with the second thing, which is having side stories. But if you do the first thing well, and you start with that backstory, then guess what? You already have a good starting point for a side story to refer back to throughout the rest of the video. It doesn't just have to be this intro thing. So you sprinkle in this context, this backstory at the very beginning, and then you're able to keep dispersing it throughout the rest of the video. And now, look, you have side stories without even trying to come up with more side stories. If you can't come up with extra side stories, well, great, but at least right now, you already have one that you can keep referring to for the rest of the video. And sprinkle it in all over the place. And finally, do what this guy does, and actually Natasha and Ryan are doing it too, because like I said, these are elements of really successful viral videos. So this one is from a channel called Camera Conspiracies, and it's a much smaller channel, but oh, he does this really well. So you see this video and you probably click because you want one thing, but what you actually get is something very different, but equally valuable, and you don't even realize that. Because if it were too obvious that that's what's happening, you'd probably click away, but he does it really subtly. It's not what you expect because he doesn't just tell you the thing you shouldn't be doing. He also admits that he falls into the same trap all the time. This trap of wanting a better and better camera, even though deep down he knows that's not what he needs, but he's able to relate to you and admit that he still falls in the same thing. And so he ends up taking you on a journey. And by the end of it, you're probably questioning all of your life choices with cameras and everything else, which is some good storytelling. Just like how Ryan gets you hooked on an endearing story between two brothers, and Natasha wants to put her desk on the ground, but she's not sure if doing it will change her life or lead to regrets. So if you caught it, what they're all doing is being really relatable, but it's pretty tough to be relatable in a subtle and genuine way. And I found that the trick to it is really that you kind of need some massaging. So you really need to take the time to dig into the heart of that content so that you can figure out what it is you need to share with your audience to make them feel connected to you and the message of the video. I did do all three of these things in this video, and you might not have noticed. I will admit it was not as masterfully as someone like Ryan Trahan may have done, but that is the point. You can do it, I can do it, any creator can do it. You just have to be a little bit intentional. And at the end of the day, even though it seems harder, I truly believe this will make your videos easier because they'll flow better, you'll be more proud of them, and overall the story will just come together a lot better. So if you want more about storytelling, watch this video next. Thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments what other patterns you've noticed that the best YouTubers are doing. Good luck on those viral videos.